Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Think of the life you have lived until now as over and as a dead man. See what's left as a bonus and live it according to nature. Love the hand that fate deals you and play it as your own, for what could be more fitting? Ta never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people but care more about their opinion than our own. In your actions, don't procrastinate. In your conversations, don't confuse. In your thoughts, don't wander. In your soul, don't be passive or aggressive. In your life, don't be all about business. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been. It's time you realize that you have something in you more powerful and miraculous than the things that affect you and make you dance like a puppet. External things are not the problem. It's your assessment of them, which you can erase right now. If anyone can refute me, show me him making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, he'll gladly change. It's the truth, I'm after, and the truth never harmed anyone. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. If a man knows not which port he sails, no wind is favorable. No person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they don't have, and to cheerfully put to good use what they do have. Nothing, to my way of thinking, is a better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop just where he is and pass some time in his own company. He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a man who is alive. This is our big mistake, to think we look forward to death. Most of death is already gone. Whatever time has passed is owned by death. Life is very short and anxious for those who forget the past, neglect the present, and fear the future. I judge you unfortunate because you have never lived through misfortune. You have passed through life without an opponent. No one can ever know what you are capable of, not even you. How does it help to make troubles heavier by bemoaning them? People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. Then your life will flow well. First, say to yourself what you would be and then do what you have to do. Curb your desire, don't set your heart on so many things, and you will get what you need. That's why the philosophers warn us not to be satisfied with mere learning, but to add practice and then training. For as time passes, we forget what we learned and end up doing the opposite, and hold opinions the opposite of what we should. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself, to the choices that are my own. If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would have not mentioned these alone." I begin to speak only when I'm certain what ill say isn't better left unsaid, Cato. What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for some goal worthy of him. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Of all people, only those are at leisure who make time for philosophy, only they truly live. Not satisfied to merely keep good watch over their own days, they annex every age to their own. All the harvest of the past is added to their store. Only an ingrate would fail to see that these great architects of venerable thoughts were born for us and have designed a way of life for us. He private diaries of one of Rome's greatest emperors, the personal letters of one of Rome's best playwrights and wisest power brokers, the lectures of a former slave in exile turned influential teacher. Against all odds, and the passing of some 2 millennia, these incredible documents survive. What do they say? Could these ancient and obscure pages really contain anything relevant to modern life? The answer, it turns out, is yes. They contain some of the greatest wisdom in the history of the world. Together, these documents constitute the bedrock of what is known as Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that was once one of the most popular civic disciplines in the West, practiced by the rich and the impoverished, the powerful and the struggling alike in the pursuit of the good life. But over the centuries, knowledge of this way of thinking, once essential to so many, slowly faded from view. Except to the most avid seekers of wisdom, Stoicism is either unknown or misunderstood. Indeed, it would be hard to find a word dealt a greater injustice at the hands of the English language than Stoic. To the average person, this vibrant, action-oriented and paradigm-shifting way of living has become shorthand for emotionlessness. Given the fact that the mere mention of philosophy makes most nervous, or bored, Stoic philosophy on the surface sounds like the last thing anyone would want to learn about, let alone urgently need in the course of daily life. What a sad fate for a philosophy that even one of its occasional critics, Arthur Schopenhauer, would describe as the highest point to which man can attain by the mere use of his faculty of reason. Our goal with this book is to restore Stoicism to its rightful place as a tool in the pursuit of self-mastery, perseverance, and wisdom, something one uses to live a great life rather than some esoteric field of academic inquiry. Certainly, many of history's great minds not only understood Stoicism for what it truly is, they sought it out. George Washington, Walt Whitman, Frederick the Great, Eugène Delacroix, Adam Smith, Immanuel Kant, Thomas Jefferson, Matthew Arnold, Ambrose Bierce, Theodore Roosevelt, William Alexander Percy, Ralph Waldo Emerson. Each read, studied, quoted, or admired the Stoics. The ancient Stoics themselves were no slouches. The names you encounter in this book, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, belonged to, respectively, a Roman emperor, a former slave who triumphed to become an influential lecturer and friend of the Emperor Hadrian, and a famous playwright and political advisor. There were Stoics like Cato the Younger, who was an admired politician. Zeno was a prosperous merchant, as several Stoics were. Cleanthes was a former boxer and worked as a water carrier to put himself through school. Chrysippus, whose writings are now completely lost but tallied, more than 700 books, trained as a long-distance runner. Posidonius served as an ambassador. Musonius Rufus was a teacher, and many others. Stoicism has found a new and diverse audience, ranging from the coaching staffs of the New England Patriots and Seattle Seahawks to rapper LL Cool J and broadcaster Michelle Tafoya, as well as many professional athletes, CEOs, hedge fund managers, artists, executives, and public men and women. What have all these great men and women found within Stoicism that others missed? A great deal. While academics often see Stoicism as an antiquated methodology of minor interest, it has been the doers of the world who found that it provides much-needed strength and stamina for their challenging lives. When journalist and Civil War veteran Ambrose Bierce advised a young writer that studying the Stoics would teach him how to be a worthy guest at the table of the gods, or when the painter Eugène Delacroix, famous for his painting, Liberty Leading the People, called Stoicism his consoling religion, they were speaking from experience. So was the brave abolitionist and Colonel Thomas Wentworth Higginson, who led the first all-black regiment in the U.S. Civil War and produced one of the more memorable translations of Epictetus. The Southern planter and writer William Alexander Percy, who led the rescue efforts in the Great Flood of 1927, had a unique reference point when he said of Stoicism that when all is lost, it stands fast, as would the author and angel investor Tim Ferriss. When he referred to Stoicism as the ideal personal operating system, other high-powered executives like Jonathan Newhouse, CEO of Condé Nast International, have agreed. But it's for the field of battle that Stoicism seems to have been particularly well designed. In 1965, parachuted from his shot-up plane over Vietnam into what would ultimately be a half-decade of torture and imprisonment, whose name was on his lips, Epictetus. Just as Frederick the Great reportedly rode into battle with the works of the Stoics in his saddlebags, so too did Marine and NATO Commander General James Mad Dog Mattis, who carried the meditations of Marcus Aurelius with him on deployments in the Persian Gulf, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Again, these weren't professors, but practitioners, and as a practical philosophy, they found Stoicism perfectly suited to their purposes. Stoicism was a school of philosophy founded in Athens by Zeno of Citium in the early 3rd century BC. Its name is derived from the Greek stoa meaning porch, because that's where Zeno first taught his students. The philosophy asserts that virtue, meaning chiefly the 4 cardinal virtues of self-control, courage, justice, and wisdom, is happiness. And it is our perceptions of things rather than the things themselves that cause most of our trouble. Stoicism teaches that we can't control or rely on anything outside, what Epictetus called our reasoned choice, our ability to use. Our reason to choose how we categorize, respond, and reorient ourselves to external events. Early Stoicism was much closer to a comprehensive philosophy like other ancient schools, whose names might be vaguely familiar: Epicureanism, Cynicism, Platonism, Skepticism. Proponents spoke of diverse topics including physics, logic, cosmology, and many others. One of the analogies favored by the Stoics to describe their philosophy was that of a fertile field. Logic was the protective fence, physics was the field, and the crop that all this produced was ethics, or how to live, as Stoicism progressed. However, it focused primarily on 2 of these topics: logic and ethics, making its way from Greece to Rome. Stoicism became much more practical to fit the active, pragmatic lives of the industrious Romans. As Marcus Aurelius would later observe, I was blessed when I set my heart on philosophy, that I didn't fall into the sophist's trap, nor remove myself to the writer's desk, or cop logic, or busy myself with studying the heavens. I instead, he and Epictetus and Seneca focused on a series of questions, not unlike the ones we continue to ask ourselves today. What is the best way to live? What do I do about my anger? What are my obligations to my fellow human beings? I'm afraid to die. Why is that? How can I deal with the difficult situations I face? How should I handle the success or power I hold? These weren't abstract questions. In their writings, often private letters or diaries, and in their lectures, the Stoics struggled to come up with real actionable answers. They ultimately framed their work around a series of exercises in 3 critical disciplines. Discipline of perception, how we see and perceive the world around us. The discipline of action, the decisions and actions we take and to what end. In utilizing and aligning our will, we will find the wisdom and perspective to deal with anything the world puts before us. It was their belief that by strengthening themselves and their fellow citizens in these disciplines, they could cultivate resilience, purpose, and even joy. Born in the tumultuous ancient world, Stoicism took aim at the unpredictable nature of everyday life and offered a set of practical tools meant for daily use. Our modern world may seem radically different than the painted porch, stoa poikile, of the Athenian agora and the forum and court of Rome. But the Stoics took great pains to remind themselves, see November 10th, that they weren't facing things any different than their own forebears did, and that the future wouldn't radically alter the nature and end of human existence. One day is as all days, as the Stoics like to say. In utilizing and aligning our will, we will find the wisdom and perspective to deal with anything the world puts before us. It was their belief that by strengthening themselves and their fellow citizens in these disciplines, they could cultivate resilience, purpose, and even joy. Wrestling with an addiction, deeply in love, or moving from one flawed relationship to another. Are you approaching your golden years, or enjoying the spoils of youth, busy and active, or bored out of your mind? Whatever it is, whatever you're going through, there is wisdom from the Stoics that can help. In fact, in many cases, they have addressed it explicitly in terms that feel shockingly modern. That's what we're going to focus on in this book. Drawing directly from the Stoic canon, we present a selection of original translations of the greatest passages from the 3 major figures of late Stoicism: Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, along with a few assorted sayings from their Stoic predecessors, Zeno, Cleanthes, Chrysippus, Musonius, Hecato. Accompanying each quotation is our attempt to tell a story, provide context, ask a question.